Houston Texans. Yeah, the 9-game winning streak broken. The 9-game winning streak don't nobody care about.
9 games, and there is this sort of tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it. Doesn't make it sound kind of dynamic. But another honorable mention, Freddie Kitchens or perhaps Hugh Jackson, who is now watching a bunch of teams like, be better than him. And meanwhile, he is now last in the AFC.
You went
Central.
really hard to reach to get Hugh Jackson in there. You realize that, right? You started with a guy you could have given credit to, and then we're like, never mind.
It just makes me laugh that somewhere Hugh Jackson is still being sad. But the first name is the Rams, because Jared Goff was Jared off, Bomani.
Wow.
Yes, give me credit for that. The usually prolific Rams put up all 6 points in a loss to the suffocating Bears defense last night. Goff threw 4 interceptions. Todd Gurley ran for 28 yards. So how worried should Los Angelinos be about their star quarterback going forward?
I mean, I'll redeem your Jared off by saying the G ain't in him. Perhaps that is the thing.
There it is. Teamwork.
A reference that you do not get. Now, here's the problem that they've got here. Their offense hinges on Todd Gurley. And what we saw in this game against the Bears is if you can schematically stop Todd Gurley, Jared Goff might go out here and give you something like this. Understand, the Rams use more play action than anybody else in the league. Goff's got more play action attempts than anybody else. The yards per attempt for him the last 2 seasons when Todd Gurley is not on the field drops by about 1.5 yards. I mean, he looks out here like a guy where everything else has to go right. And if everything else doesn't go right and you got to lean on him, I think that might be more than he can do.
Yeah, we are learning more about a guy that, we had a very different feeling about when Jeff Fisher was the coach. And it does feel like in week 4, Bo, when he played the Minnesota Vikings, it was this sort of makeover, a talk show makeover. He was a totally different guy. But since then, according to these statistics, we've basically been seeing him working back old elements of his wardrobe. And now he's kind of back looking like the problem that he used to be. But the other problem is that home field for the Rams is so important. If you look at their schedule, if you look back at it and you say, okay, road games versus teams that are not currently dead last in their division, this is what we have. Seattle, they won by 2. Denver, they won by 3. The Saints, they lost by 10, and now the Bears, they lost by 9. That's a terrible resume if this team ends up going on the road in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, but I would not make the assumption that he stopped being the problem that he was before. I think he just got a much better coach, right? Like, the numbers make it difficult to spell out on this, but it's not like they've been, hey, Jared Goff, carry us, take us to where this is going. He is surrounded by a lot of good things going on. Now, part of what happened in this game last night, though, is one of the bad things they've got is their line's banged up and their line is not deep. But I don't feel like either one of those teams could have come out of that game feeling good about where they're going to be when this postseason comes, because it comes down, we're really thinking it's these 2 teams and the Saints are probably the 3 best in the NFC.
Yes.
Saints don't have a quarterback that's going to look as awful as those dudes last night. They look like a couple of Petermen.
The Bears defense, Bo, despite the Peter Manishness of Mitchell Trubisky, that defense looked legit. I just wonder if we're just watching an iteration of the Jaguars from last year. You have a defense that may be a top-of-the-world quality defense, but you have a quarterback who's going to hamstring them when it seems like look at those. The thing is, look at those throws. Like, we're not just talking about a dude that isn't necessarily playing well. What is this? They'll be like, well, maybe his shoulder is banged up. Did his shoulder, does he have an eyeball in his shoulder? He looked blind. No, like, you ain't gonna blame that on nobody's shoulder. And if you take out those 6 touchdowns he threw against the Bucs when the Bucs had the worst defense in NFL history, this guy only has about 2 or 3 games that would qualify as pretty good. Instead, you end up with that.
No. Both of these teams have quarterback problems, just to varying degrees. Name is the Miami Miracle. Dolphins are down 6 on their own 31-yard line with just 7 seconds left in the game, and then they put Rob Gronkowski in at safety. Let's watch this. Like, this never works. This ever works.
No.
But never ever goes. Now this. Okay. Kenyon Drake's got it. Now this is the whoa, wait a minute, this is working. And then there's Gronk like, whoa, I'm not supposed to have to do this.
No, and there is some cruel poetry in that being a 69-yard touchdown and Rob Gronkowski just eating it right there.
Gronk better than me. I wouldn't even dove. Like, he ain't had no chance to get him at that point. Like, oh, come on, man.
But this is, to be clear,
that's the question. Is Belichick deserve blame on this?
He has to, Bo. This is a play we don't see. Since the merger, no one has had a touchdown of this length in that way with no time left on the clock. And it does feel like Albert Einstein forgot to carry the one Like, Bill Belichick gives us 900-word monologues about punt coverages and special teams and defensive nuance. But here he seemed to count on the idea that Ryan Tannehill could throw a ball 70 yards. And I feel like that wasn't a good bet.
Well, now, there's this other part of this, though, in fairness to Belichick. Can we blame him for the fact that the other 10 guys got? Right? Because like,
a lot went wrong.
I have no idea. Like, Devin McCourty's the guy they took out of the game. Maybe their best defensive player. I have no idea how that goes if he gets back there. But shocking beyond the fact that that Gronk did that is the fact that it ever got there in the first place. So much went catastrophically wrong on that play. But he outsmarted himself. There's no way around the fact that he outsmarted himself. He also had a defense that went for the play that never works. It never works. It worked.
Yes, and Kyle Van Noy, to throw blame on someone else out there, was positioned incorrectly. It looks like he was the guy grasping after Kenyon Drake, as Kenyon Drake just looked back and said, take care, good luck. But this does feel like another chapter to a weird rivalry. The Pats, since 2013, are 1-5 against the Dolphins. There just seems to be something about the Dolphins that Belichick and Brady can't solve.
Well, I mean, keep in mind that those losses are in Miami, and I mean, the NFL is not the same thing as the NBA, but if there was a team that had a bad record in the NBA in their games against Miami and they played all the games on Sunday and Saturday night be cracking, you would have an assumption.
Yes,
This is the NBA. We are viewing this entirely differently. In fact, you play the Lakers or the Heat on a Sunday, I'm always betting on the home team.
Right, because the flu ends up somehow
only got one
contagious.
night in town, break down a B-clown.
Last name, the Cowboys. Because look at Dallas, Bo. After beating the Eagles in overtime yesterday, the Cowboys have won 5 straight. They wield a 2-game lead in the NFC East. But we start with Amari Cooper, who had 217 yards and 3 touchdowns. So how much credit do you give the wide receiver for turning this whole thing around?
All right, no, the one thing we knew about the Cowboys coming into this year was that they had wide receiver problems, right?
Big ones.
They went and got one, and now the offense looks to be totally different. And hey, man, a lot of us owe Jerry a little bit of an apology. Look, because the thing about Jerry is this. Jerry got rich by saying, I'm going to dig on this spot in the ground and hope that there's oil. This is what he did here with Amari Cooper. It was like, hey, man, we need a receiver. There's one out there. Yeah, I think it's worth the first-round pick. I think there might be oil under there. And there was. Now that combined with a mediocre division, they're going to the playoffs unless something catastrophic happens.
No, Jason Garrett's Cialis commercial rolls on. This is incredible. And Amari Cooper, yes, the oil is there to the tune of the most receiving yards since week 9 in the entire league. The Cowboys are the only team in that mediocre division, as you put it, that has a positive point differential. Now, that is a plus 30-point differential. They're not world beaters. It did take some things in this game, including overtime, including some refereeing mishaps, for this to tilt in the Cowboys' way. If we can throw the video, please, of the very first play of the game. It is a kickoff. It is Malcolm Jenkins hitting the ball loose. It is a scrum. It is the ball being recovered by our man, Grugier Hill, from bulletin board fame last week, talking about how the Cowboys would choke. But, Bo, this ends up being challenged. It ends up being a fumble, but the refs didn't have clarity on who recovered it, even though all of these dudes
it looks pretty clear to me.
Are wearing green.
Looks pretty clear to me.
And so the tone was kind of set in terms of, conspiratorial thinking from the Eagles fans. So I understand, at least on that play, why you might feel that way.
What am I supposed to do with that conspiracy theory, Pablo? Like, are we saying that this is a conspiracy?
I am simply saying that if you are an Eagles fan and there was that play and then there was that 75-yard catch and run that was negated, the Eagles had that play, and then there was that weird bogus offensive pass interference.
So basically you're saying there was a conspiracy.
I'm saying a little tinfoil hat for the Eagles fans out there might be understandable.
Why do you keep putting the hat on them when you're the one bringing it up? You're not the Eagles
All right, fine,
fan.
I'm wearing the hat. I think that the Cowboys are great for business. I think that everybody could enjoy Jerry Jones being happy because it's good for everybody's business. So yeah, maybe I am a little,
I actually think it's better for business when the Cowboys lose in heartbreaking fashion. That I tend to find far more enjoyable.
Well, that'll be more fun, I suppose.
Yeah, and people like that for business. Coming up next, did Patrick Mahomes win the MVP last night?
I love podcasts like High Noons and Bomani's and the one I do every morning for you people.
Josh Allen out here breaking Michael Vick rushing records because if he was Jaheim Allen, they'd use him better.
Oh my, I was afraid of Josh Allen getting hurt, Bo, and now all I want is to see that prophecy fulfilled. That's all I want. I want Jaheim Allen. I want that. We got a quote, and the first quote is, you see it on film, but the things he did, it's just hard to practice that. Said Ravens linebacker C.J. Mosley about Pat Mahomes after his performance yesterday, which included as unbelievable a 4th and 9 conversion as you'll ever see. Let's watch.
Mahomes out of the shotgun, where to his
bananas.
right. Mahomes holding
Like,
into the pocket, scrambling to the right side.
The number of people who can do this
Yeah, he throws it late. He's
what is one. This is like, there's one person, and it's him.
Like, I feel like he ran past Eric Weddle because Eric Weddle was like, dog, what? Wait, what? Is that the ball?
Remember the Pythagorean theorem, like where you figure out how long the diagonal is? It's longer than you think.
Also, shout out to number 57 for being C.J. Mosley right there with being tasked with
Yes.
that. I'm running behind Tyreek Hill even though my number is 57.
So this is an MVP-worthy throw, but is this now your MVP?
I don't care about no MVP. Like I'm not looking at this about if there's a trophy passes.
Yes.
Have you
Show
ever
that.
have you
Show
ever
it.
heard of anybody make a no-look pass in an NFL game?
No.
I did not know you could make a no-look pass in football. Look at this. Like what you're looking at one, do you throw it to another? If Drew Brees is the MVP, you want to give it to him, that's fine. What is the trophy that you get for the best no-look pass in NFL? So it should be a bigger trophy. It should be a prettier trophy, and that's all I care about right now is that.
I have said that Pat Mahomes is like how I used to play Madden before they made the game too realistic. But this is not a thing that the virtual world has ever imagined. This is not. And by the way, like when it comes to great actors in Hollywood, there are guys who can both stay on script and be excellent and guys who can improvise and be excellent. That's Denzel, that's De Niro, that's Pat Mahomes. Is there anybody when a play breaks down, Bo, this side of Aaron Rodgers at age 35 who can do anything like this?
Well, dude, Eric, there's one person I've ever seen who could do that. Like, there's literally, that is the list of dudes, or maybe he's the only one to have ever conceived of such a thing.
Right.
I have no idea, but whew.
They're heat checks, but they actually work.
All right, quote, Roethlisberger probably could have come in a series or so sooner, but we were in the rhythm and flow of the game. So Steelers coach Mike Tomlin explaining why he stuck with backup quarterback Josh Dobbs over Big Ben until they lost their lead late in the fourth quarter. Pablo, what'd you make of Tomlin's explanation?
Oh, you remember that commercial the NCAA put out about how there was this kid on a team who had the ball go off of him and then he went to the ref and said, actually, I'm sorry, it was me. You should know that. That's what this was, but for the media and NFL coaches. This is admirable honesty, but we didn't know this, and we didn't have to know this. If I'm advising Mike Tomlin, Bo, because, by the way, Ben Roethlisberger on that last drive when he came back in was 7 of 7, and meanwhile, Dobbs had like 4 completions to his total 4 incompletions on the game. Like, this should have not happened this way, and instead he sort of fell on a sword for reasons I can't fathom.
Oh, no. In retrospect, I know why he fell on the sword, and the reason he fell on the sword is right there. Because if Mike Tomlin did not tell us why Ben Roethlisberger didn't go into the game, Ben Roethlisberger damn sure was going to be the one to let us know that he is ready and he has no idea why it is. And by the way, he would have been justified in that case. Tomlin works for a franchise that hadn't fired a coach in like 50 years.
Yep.
These last 3 games would get a lot of other people on super duper hot seat. This was not a great performance from him. It was not a great performance. Last week is, look, they just lost to one of the worst teams in the league in a fashion that made you look up and say, man, who's coaching this team?
But by the way, they were so close to not losing this. If we can show how the game ended, if Mike Tomlin was just counting the whole time on like the Raiders tanking this game, he was probably not far off.
Yeah, except if you were banking on the hook and ladder going that far
Another hook
again.
and ladder.
No, man, this is like no, you don't get to claim the credit for that one. This was a bad look for him all around. Losing that game to the Chargers with the linebackers regarding Keenan Allen, Ooh. Now, you can't blame that on him per se, but that's why you don't put it in the hands, or shall we say, on the feet of the kicker.
Look, I mean, that's just terrible.
Yeah, that's a long ride home, baby. That's a long ride home.
The Raiders, Bo, the Raiders won. John Gruden was high-fiving people.
Every draft pick the Raiders has keeps getting worse. The Raiders won, the Bears won, the Cowboys won.
Last quote. What did work? There's nothing that worked. Nothing worked. So everything did not work. said Washington coach Jay Gruden when asked what didn't work for Mark Sanchez, who went 6 of 14 for 38 yards and 2 picks. Was it really as bad as Gruden says?
Yes. I don't see any way that you could answer this. They were losing 34-0 to a team that we thought was going to get the #1 pick not that long ago. It was so bad that they brought in a dude who hadn't thrown an NFL pass in 7 years, and things got demonstrably better. He is going to start next week. The entire Colin Kaepernick collusion case laid bare in this game in every way.
Yes, what a terrible week for this franchise, by the way. What a terrible month, I guess decade, entire existence. You can go down the line because incompetence flows from the top, and now we are just sitting in the pooled lake of incompetence at the foot of Washington's mountain because this, Bo, like, not only is it the collusion case, not only is it the fact that you could have used Colin Kaepernick, it's the fact that they don't know how to handle any of this in the press.
Well, also, they were going to win the division like 3 weeks ago.
Yes,
everything
they were number
was
one.
set up for them to win that division. But think about this. The idea was, well, we don't want a quarterback that plays like Kaepernick does.
No.
Look at the way that dude was playing. We need a guy that needs the system. Look what happened when they got the guy who knew how to run the system. Like, really, every single case in points there. Now it's too late.
Right. And the Giants are kind of like, wait a minute, could we make the postseason?
Eli might stick around. Coming up next, are Chicago Bulls in the midst of a mutiny?
Started looking.
Also, honorable mention, the Chargers are like 1 game behind the Chiefs.
I know, they're
like they
so
could wind
good.
up with home field for the whole playoffs, but they don't have no home field.
Today's number 6. That is how many days Jim Boylan had been coach of the Bulls before a players-only meeting was called after a 56-point loss to the Celtics. Bo, do you see this problem festering for Chicago?
Oh, no, I don't see any way that this gets better anytime soon. Look, it wasn't even a week, and these dudes went to the union because the practices were too much. And we're not talking about some dude who hasn't been around the NBA. How in the world did he think that he was going to be having 2-hour practices and going into interviews after a back-to-back saying that you pulled the starters so that you could practice them hard the next day and really think that they were going to put up with this? This doesn't work in this league.
This guy came in and started using phrases like shock and awe in terms of what he wanted the locker room to feel, and it is always good when your new regime is using slogans last seen in the Iraq War. Like, this is a team, Bo, that is dysfunctional, not just in terms of the players being, like, anonymous and starting revolts, because, yeah, okay, but the coach could not even agree to concede that this players-only meeting happened against his will. He's still out here trying to save face.
Also, think about this. Who are the guys that were here and that were like, nah, man, this ain't going to happen? One of them was Zach LaVine, right? One of them was Wendell Carter.
The rookie.
That dude's 19 years old. And he was like, what are you, crazy?
It's his like 3rd month in the league.
That dude just played for Mike Krzyzewski, and he's looking at you like, yo, man, you're going to watch the way that you treat me. Which means, by the way, this was a half step away from Wendell Carter's mama calling up and being like, hey, man, you ain't going to be treating my boy like this.
By the way, do we have the video of that one possession that sort of exemplified everything that's happening in Chicago? Because here's an inbounds play.
Yeah.
And there is allegedly defense.
No, I mean, dude.
This is fireable, and the guy has been coached for less than a week.
He just got there. Like, everybody, I think, would acknowledge the Fred Hoiberg thing. It wasn't going. You probably needed somebody that was a little tougher than Hoiberg. Everybody gets that. But Boylan isn't backing down after this. Like, the player said, we're not going for it. And he's like, well, I guess we'll have to find the middle ground.
Because he's the bad cop. Hoiberg was the good cop.
But they need another cop.
Or fewer of them.
Chicago need more police. In closing, I want to send a shout out to Malia Emma. Brought the house down at the Benz in Atlanta before Atlanta United won the MLS Cup. Pablo, did you see this on Saturday?
Ooh, no. Oh,
that's right. There you go. There you go. Ooh. And she got a nameplate on. Ooh. Yeah. Here's the thing, though, Pablo. I think you need to calm down a little bit. Because you get on this television show every week and claim anybody that's got any drop of Asian heritage whatsoever, and you draft them for your people. I watched that video. You know what I saw? Somebody's going to walk into the GM's office and demand to be traded. Sorry, buddy. She's coming over here with us.
Wow.
That's
the culture
right.
exchange.
That's right. You
You
wanted Kyler Murray. I guess you can have him. We'll take 7-year-old Emma. Whatever her
Malia
name
Emma.
is. Yeah, we'll take her all the way. By the time we get here, we will learn her name. That's right.
I did look to see, of course, is she Filipino?
Doesn't
She's
matter. Doesn't matter.
Indonesian.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry, buddy. Sorry, buddy. This don't concern you no more.
I can't pronounce her name either.
She doesn't want
I'll be honest.
She doesn't want to play for y'all.
But that growl.
Right. That's the beginning
We
of the
could
end.
use that more than you could. In closing, I was taking my brother to dinner before a Broadway show on Saturday when I accidentally wandered into my own personal hell. And in case you're not familiar with what my personal hell looks like, let's watch. This is SantaCon, Bomani Jones.
yeah.
You know, it's when a bunch of people, a bunch of bros get hammered and descend upon the city,
Whoa.
dressed as Santa Claus. And I just want to say something. This is the war on Christmas. This is what it actually looks like because somewhere children of this city are watching and wondering why is any of this
Is this
a
the war
thing?
on Christmas or the war of Christmas? And wait a minute. Who's that one guy and why is he hanging out with them?
I believe he was dressed as like the Nutcracker.
Whatever.